This video is designed to assist in construction methods recommended by the American Center for Disease Control. The CDC recommends wearing cloth face coverings in public settings where other social distancing measures are difficult to maintain, for instance, grocery stores and pharmacies, especially in areas of significant community-based transmission. The CDC also advises the use of simple cloth face coverings to slow the spread of the virus and help people who may have the virus and do not know it from transmitting it to others. Cloth face coverings fashioned from household items or made at home from common materials at low cost can be used as an additional voluntary public health measure. Cloth face coverings should not be placed on young children under age 2, anyone who has trouble breathing or is unconscious, incapacitated, or otherwise unable to remove the mask without assistance. The cloth face coverings recommended are not surgical masks or N95 respirators. Those are critical supplies that must continue to be reserved for healthcare workers and other medical first responders, as recommended by current CDC guidance. Alright, the first mask we're making is the simplest version. All you need is a bandana and 2 hair ties. If you don't have a bandana, just any piece of fabric that's large enough to do the job will work. So to do this mask, all you do is fold your fabric in half, and then you're going to fold it into thirds. So I'm folding it so the raw edges are on the inside and the folded edge is the most exposed. Then you take your 2 hair ties and just slip them over both ends. You will fold this in towards the middle. Now you need enough that this overlaps so you can tuck it in. And the thing you want to be careful of here is that you don't pull it apart. It will very easily pull apart. So you could put a little stitch there if you'd like, if you have a needle and thread. Otherwise, go ahead and just put it on, and there you have a mask. And you can adjust it and pull it up and down to make sure your nose and mouth are covered. Of course, you want to make sure that it all feels secure. Once it's on your face, the elastic should hold it in place, but you might have to mess around with it to make sure it's where you want it to be. So our next mask is also quite simple to make. All you need is a t-shirt, scissors, and something to measure with. So you're going to be dealing with both layers of the t-shirt at one time. So according to the CDC website, they recommend a depth of 7 to 8 inches or 18 to 20 centimeters, but you can customize it based on your preferences. So just cut that part off, again cutting through both layers of your t-shirt. Get rid of the other part, you don't need that. Alright, so now you're dealing with a tube of fabric. So what we're going to be doing is cutting out a section of this. So you have the mask part on this side and then straps along the top and bottom. Now my t-shirt has seams along the side and I don't want that on my nose. So I'm just rotating that around so that the seams are in the center of this. It's up to you if you want to do that. It's not a huge difference. So now thinking about the depth of your shirt, you want the straps to be about 1/2 inch or 1 to 2 centimeters tall. Just think about that distance. And then in terms of the width of the mask, we're going to be cutting in from one end. And to gauge how wide you want it to be, we can look at this other mask we made. This one's about 9 inches or 23 centimeters, so we're going to use half this measurement since we're cutting on the fold. So from the fold out, moving towards the center, you want half the total width. And on the top and bottom, you're going to have those straps. So the section I've outlined here is where you will be cutting. So cutting in from one side all the way up. I'm going to stop there at that predetermined width. Then moving across, just visualize it, cut in from the other side. And then join those two pieces so you can cut out that whole piece. So essentially the mask is done. Now you just need to separate the straps. So just cut through that. Now the thing about t-shirt fabric is when you pull it, it gets thinner. So you can pull on those before you tie it, because as you tie it, it will get thinner. And then you can just go ahead and try it on. Now you could also pleat it in the center here if you think it's too tall. And the CDC recommends tying this on top of your head and around your neck. Now that piece that we cut out of our mask, see, there you go. You can make a slightly smaller mask out of this piece of fabric. There should be enough left to make a whole nother mask. So just follow the same steps, cut in from both sides, and across, then open it up and try it on. So if the piece comes apart like that because of the seam in the t-shirt, that's fine. Just make it even on both sides and then use that part to tie around your neck. If it's not long enough, then you can add on to it with other string, but there you have another mask. So our last mask is a little more advanced. You need 2 pieces of fabric, needle and thread, scissors, and a safety pin or a bobby pin if you don't have that. You could also get a wire or a paper clip or something for the bridge of the nose. Then you need elastic or string if you don't have elastic. This is string I made out of a t-shirt, so if you want to see a video on how to do that, you can click below in the comments. Alright, so the first thing you're going to do is thread your needle. So take some thread off your spool. You want the length of this thread to be maybe about a foot or 30 centimeters times 2. Because when you thread it in your needle, you're going to double it up. So your working thread will be half the length that you cut off. And then just tie a knot in the end. This is just a regular overhand knot, nothing fancy. So just tighten it up, and if you have a long tail at the end after you've tightened your knot, just snip that off. Looking at our 2 pieces of fabric, I have my fun polka dot fabric, and I want that facing out, so I'm going to put that face down. I'll put my second piece of fabric on top, and we're going to treat these 2 pieces as one together. Just fold down the top edge, and this is the first edge we're going to sew. You can use your fingers to crease this, or if you have an iron, I would iron it down. But assuming you have less materials, you can just use your fingers to crease it like you would a piece of paper. We're going to do both top and bottom edge this way. Now to start sewing, going from this, which is what's called the wrong side, and that's the right side, going to insert the needle so that the knot is on the inner side. The first stitch we're doing is called a running stitch, which is the most basic of stitches. You just go up and down. There will be a space in between each stitch, alternating from front to back. The thing about the running stitch is that you can do several at once by loading your needle, by sort of rocking it in and out. So it's very fast. The downside to the running stitch is that as you're gathering it, it can bunch up your fabric. So if you don't like that, you can also do what's called a back stitch. So from the right side, I'm going back on the stitch right where I came out, and then I'm going underneath the length of 2 stitches. So see on the front, it looks like 2 stitches right next to each other. And on the back, there will be a double length of thread. So again, I go back to meet the last stitch, and then I come out ahead of that last stitch. So there's a gap. So again, in and out, coming out beyond that stitch. So I go more in depth with these stitches in a separate video, which I will link below in the comments, but either the running stitch or the back stitch is really fine for this. I'm using black thread here so that you can see it, hopefully. I would, of course, recommend a more matching thread, but if you like the contrasting look, then go for it. All part of the design. But all you really need to do is secure this edge down so that it doesn't fray. So I'm just going to finish this up with the running stitch quickly. If you wanted to put a wire in on the bridge of the nose, this is where you would put it in before you stitch it up, or just after you stitch it up, just thread it through there. Just put it in the center, and then when you're trying it on, you'll bend it to the shape you want. This is a completely optional step. It's kind of fine without it. So now at the end, to finish it off, you're going to take a tiny little stitch, like a regular stitch, and this loop that you have, just pull it up a little smaller, and then pass your needle through that loop. So just through there and pull it up tight. You're going to do this at least 2 times. 2 is fine, you don't really need to do any more than that. And then that will give you a secure knot, and you can snip off your thread pretty close to that knot, and it shouldn't come undone. Then you're going to do the same on the bottom. And through the magic of television, I have one mostly completed. Boom. All right, so you can see I've done the top and the bottom and one side. So the side is just a little bit different because we're going to fold it 2 times. So once in a little bit, and then again. And that's to create a little pocket where our elastic is going to go. So just keep in mind now, this end here has a lot more fabric layers. We folded it in from the top and from the sides, so that first stitch is going to be a little more difficult. Just make sure you take care of your thumb, get it through there, and then you're just going to do either a running or a back stitch along the edge. The big difference here is that you want to keep this close to the edge, like a narrow stitching line, because you're creating room where you're going to thread your elastic or string. Finish this up with a knot. And snip off your thread. So there we have the mask portion done. Looks nice. So now you need either your safety pin or your bobby pin and your elastic. So I'll do 2 sections. I'll do string at the end of this video. So for the safety pin, I would pierce the elastic if you can do that, and then you're just going to use that to thread it through. And I like to leave it all one length so that I don't lose the elastic in the channel, so you can cut it off afterwards, but whatever you want to do is fine. So just work it through there. Your safety pin. And then you're just going to estimate how long you need, tie it off, and then you can test it on your own face just to see what length you need. adjust as needed. So once you are happy with the length of elastic, you can tie off your knot tight. Just be careful because elastic does want to slip, so I like to pull all 4 pieces at once, snip off your ends. And then this knot, you don't want to be behind your ear, so you're just going to sort of rotate it through the channel so that it's on the inside. That way you have a nice smooth elastic behind your ear. If you're going to be wearing this for extended periods of time, then you want it to be as comfortable as possible. Now, if you don't have a safety pin, you can also use something else like a bobby pin. So here I'm snipping off a piece. I'm going to put it right in the bobby pin and basically double it up. And then just use that to thread it through. So once you've done that, hold on to one end and pull the rest of it through, and then you're just going to do the same thing, of course, as you did on the other side. So you could fold it to match your loops to make sure they're even. And then just tie it off tight, clip off the ends, and work your knot into the channel. And there you have a mask. Now, if you don't have elastic and you have string, one option is that you could reverse the sewing order and do the sides first and the top and bottom last and thread string through the top and bottom. But this will also work with the same setup of the sides. So here I'm just going to quickly put 2 strings through. Again, this is the string I made from a t-shirt. So if you don't have string or anything you think is suitable, you can check out the other video I have on how to make t-shirt yarn in the comments below. So once you have your strings through, then you can just mess around with tying it together around your face, much like the mask we made out of a t-shirt. So there is another option for you. And here are all the masks we've made in this little workshop. The main things about wearing a mask you've made yourself are to make sure your mouth and nose are fully covered and everything is snug. So make any adjustments you need to make before you leave the house. And then of course, make sure you're not touching your eyes, nose, and mouth when you remove it, and wash your hands immediately after. You should also wash the masks, so have a couple around so you can have one ready to go at all times.